Welcome to the Couchboard podcast, where we naively discuss anything and everything for your listening pleasure. I am Colby, joined by Max and Jordan, per the norm. Today we are talking about kids these days and stuff, and growing up and stuff. Before we get around to the subject, what have you guys been up to?
Let's see. As of last night, my wife and I, we finished My Fair Lady. Audrey Hepburn. Great show. Great show. Good show. Classic. It was good. I don't know.
How many hours is that?
Three? And there's an intermission, you know.
Is it actually good though? Like, does it hold your attention for 3 hours?
You know, her dad. So, do you know the rough story of it?
Not really, no. To be honest.
So, no, it's about Audrey Hepburn. She was a bit of a street rat. No, she just had a lower class job.
Riff raff.
Yeah, yeah. And
does she sing that song?
She does. She breaks out into a 1993.
That's where Aladdin got it from. Okay. All right. She has a pet monkey.
Yeah, and she's chased by soldiers. Anyway, but she's got a terrible, a Cockney accent. Just makes your ears wince. It's really harsh. And so this guy, he's a professor of languages and things, and he makes a bet with his buddy saying, hey, if I can get this woman speaking professionally in a true English, Queen's English, and I can get other people to believe that she's, a royal type, a
refined.
higher class type. Yeah, refined. You owe me whatever they bet. I forget. And so, anyway, it's pretty good overall. The only weird part, not weird, but it just gets old, is parts with her dad, I feel like. Like, your dad's just like a drunk, and like, he just kind of comes in and out of the story, and it's like, why are you here?
What
Like, you're not serving any purpose, and your songs are like 8 minutes long. So, I don't know. I guess they're a little bit of comedic relief, but not really.
Is this the Audrey Hepburn Rex Harrison version?
Yeah. So I mean, it's 1964 comedic relief, I guess, and put in songs. So they do what they can. But no, I liked it. It was really good, and for the most part, it was good. Like, watchable for sure. There's funny parts where she's trying to be fancy, but cuts back. Anyway, that was something exciting. Good movie. I don't know. I don't think anyone wants to hear about My Fair Lady very, very much. But the other thing that was exciting, it was my wife's birthday, and I mentioned before that beef tenderloins were on sale. This was the first time I'd ever bought a beef tenderloin and chopped it up and made fillets, like beef. I was gonna say, you make some filet mignons out of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're mignons. I don't know what makes a filet.
I don't know that either.
Mignon, but I had the whole tenderloin and chopped it up. Great little video online by some guy. I don't know. YouTube it. And walked you through exactly how to chop it up. So we got like 7 or 8 fillets out of it, plus like all these other like pieces of meat that you could grind up for hamburger and stuff. And like, yeah.
But do you have a grinder?
We do.
Why? Really? That's cool. Good for you.
I just got the KitchenAid attachment.
I was going to ask the KitchenAid.
Yeah.
I've seen that one, and I'm like a little suspicious of it because it's like plasticky, isn't it? And I'm like, oh.
Well, they have a plastic version. They have a metal version as well. And
Which do you have?
The metal. I'd been waiting for that because I thought the same thing. I thought plastic.
Plastic, yeah. It just feels weird to be grinding meat through plastic.
Yeah. So that happened to go on sale, and I snatched it up, and so.
How much does it cost on sale? Because I love KitchenAid, and I use it all the time, but I feel like every attachment, like my pasta maker attachment, was like north of $100 for it.
Yeah, this time it was on sale, and then there's a coupon. I think it was like $60 or $70. When it's normally like 150.
But then you got to start grinding meat. You've got to get
grinding
every day. An ROI on that grinder.
Every day I'm in there grinding sausage, grinding Italian sausage, grinding chorizo, hamburgers, you name it. No, so it would be my first time grinding something. I don't know. Be fun to try. Again, I think
you want the meat cold. That's what I hear. Like,
that's what I've heard.
You want it like nice and firm when you send it through that.
Yeah,
which again plastic. It just doesn't seem like it's up to the task of grinding firm cold meat.
Yeah,
but
I've even seen people say put your grinder in the freezer as well. Chill that as well. So it'll be fun. I mean, what's interested me is in cooking, and I know I'm sorry, this is going on and on, but I want to try not everything, but I think there's some areas where it's like we've just gotten into such a habit of just buying it pre-made that way. It's like I'd like to kind of get back to the roots and make it on my own, like grinding your own hamburger meat or something and putting some flavoring in with it, and grinding up, or same with sausage, or like mustards and things. I think would be fun to make, or relish, or I don't know. So
time, bro. That's why nobody does it.
Yeah, I know.
Time.
I know. But we'll give it a go. So anyway, that's kind of what I've been up to. Movies and food. What else is there?
Well, I was just telling Jordan before we hopped on, for anyone out there, well, there's probably plenty of people since we've got millions of listeners. Anyone who's ever suffered an attack of gout before, I feel you. I had my first gout attack on a week ago. Woke up at like 4 a.m. and my foot was just screaming in pain. So for anyone who doesn't know, gout, it's like when your body has too much uric acid, and the uric acid turns into crystals in your joints and they get super inflamed. Holy smokes, it was painful. So yeah, I've been trying to get back to walking again.
How do you get rid of that uric acid?
You have to be like thoughtful about what you eat, but like once it flares up, like you just kind of have to wait it out and take anti-inflammatories to because it's like a form of arthritis basically that flares up. But really it comes down to, and that's what I was talking to the doctor, and he's like, there's like 3 basic things. He's like, do you eat a lot of red meat? And I was like, no, I never eat red meat, like once every couple of months maybe. He's like, do you eat a lot of seafood? No, not really. Once every couple of weeks. Do you drink alcohol? No, I never drink alcohol. So I've been reading online, and there's just like it's not intuitive. Like what I was, but really I think like going more vegetarian is probably a good path. But even then, like it's not super cut and dry. Like for example, I like to eat oatmeal every morning for breakfast, and from what I was reading online is like, yeah, oatmeal is probably not the best thing to be eating if you have problems with gout. So I'm like, all right. But which actually is funny, as a follow-up to our last episode on peanut butter, great. And carbs for the most part seem pretty good. So I had for breakfast been toasting some bread, putting some peanut butter on it, no jam. But maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll, for the first time in like 20 years, I might try PB&J. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I've just been eating toast, peanut butter, and bananas for breakfast lately.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's gout.
What?
It sucks.
Well, hey,
it's the absolute freaking worst thing ever.
It's good that our key demo is 55 plus. They'll be happy to hear about your tragic story of gout.
They're not alone.
No.
Yes. All right. So what else? Oh, I saw Hamilton over the weekend. I enjoyed it. I kind of wish I would have seen it in person first, which again, heaven knows when that would actually happen. But I think I waited too long. Like everyone else spoke really highly of it, so I kind of had pretty high expectations. I don't want to say those expectations. No, I don't know. There was just some, especially towards like the back half of it. I feel like it gets a little slow. And if I were there in the theater watching it live, I feel like I would be more drawn into it and more immersed in the experience. But when I'm watching it on my TV screen, I don't know, I just kind of got a little antsy and my mind was wandering, and I just wasn't. But again, I don't think there's anything they could have done differently. Like I thought the camera angles and all that stuff was fantastic. It was really cool to see. But yeah, so I enjoyed it, but I just didn't quite love it as much as I thought I would. But King George was fantastic, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Thomas
stole the show.
He and Thomas Jefferson, I think, were the best roles.
Was he better than actually, Lafayette?
What?
Yeah, Lafayette
was
the same actor.
Trick question.
Yep.
I've heard people kind of not be big fans of Lin-Manuel, which I always thought was blasphemy, but after watching it, I'd be like, yeah, I can see someone probably doing a better job at playing this role than he did. I don't know what it is. Again, I didn't dislike his performance, but he kind of felt like he stuck out like a sore thumb in it, as, like his voice is a little bit higher. But yeah, that's my hot take on Hamilton.
Not bad. I mean, I liked it. Would I have liked it better in theater? Sure. Very much so, I'm sure. But I don't know. I'd give it a solid 8.5 out of 10.
I think I would give it like a solid 7.5 out of 10. And that to me is just like good. And maybe part of it's like I've heard a lot of the music before. So I don't know. I don't know how to describe my experience with it.
What's like your 9 or 10 out of 10? Like Cats?
Well, again, I'm sure if I had seen it in person, I would have given it a 9 or a 10.
Well, My Fair Lady, My Fair Lady's a 10.
Cats would be a solid 1, maybe 0.5, depending on the day.
Colby, what's Hamilton? What do you rate it?
I'd give it an 8. 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5.
I'm not too far away from you guys then.
No.
What else? I made peaches are in season, so I made a homemade peach cobbler over the weekend. Fantastic! It was delicious. Nothing says summer like good old peaches. And I'm also enjoying the NBA being back. I do also have to correct a mistake that I made. I was talking about last week about how Gordon Hayward wasn't going to play in the bubble, and then I was watching the Celtics play the other day, and there he was out there on the court. So I guess once his baby comes, he is going to leave the bubble and be there for that. But then you have to like quarantine for like 2 weeks when you come back into the bubble. So drama. For what? Because they'll be in the middle of like a playoff push, and he's gonna have to step away for a couple of weeks, and he's like one of their best players, so it'll be fascinating.
Well, I haven't been up to much of anything really. Just kind of the grind, the norm. Doing my pre-autumn cleanse, trying to eat healthy in preparation for the holidays, so that I don't gain a huge amount of weight, but just a manageable amount. So that's kind of my focus at the moment. Also figuring out school for the kids has been kind of a dilemma. Yeah. We don't really know what's going on, what to do there.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
No, it's not fun. It's weird and annoying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, here for the longest time it was, school's starting on the 17th, and then like last week, they're like, oh, never mind. We're moving it up to the 5th, so tomorrow. And so, I don't know. It's just kind of, I mean, I can't blame the teachers or whatever. I don't think anyone really knows what's going on. Like, just trying to figure it out on the fly. But it's just crazy that we're in the situation we're in.
It is. It's nuts. So, we got to work through that. We, want to go and see what the options are and, in detail what those encompass, but it's COVID and it's summer, so no one's ever at this school, so we can't even get the information. It's rough. It's rough stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our big dilemma at the moment. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of things. But let's move on. Since we're all caught up, today we are talking about the abstract concept of growing up and becoming an adult. Mostly because I can't come up with any fun topics like making sandwiches. Max steals them all. So we're going to talk about something a little more deep and thought-provoking. So, but really not that thought-provoking, because we're kind of just like crotchety old men at this point and get to complain about kids these days. So what is it about kids these days that you guys don't like?
Let me tell you what. I cannot
Let's first start talking about why we don't like each other's kids. How about that?
Now, Colby.
Why is it that every time we're together, No.
Max's kids. No, I don't. So what do we not? What do we dislike about kids today?
Yeah, I mean, and not necessarily dislike, but what?
Oh, I hate them. I hate them.
What are the negatives of growing up today as compared to us?
Well, everything. They just don't have it like we did. Rough. Real rough. Bunch of softies. No, okay. I won't. I'll try not to be such an old man. I don't know. There's just little things, little trends that I just find are TikTok. That's annoying. Those deep fried memes. Man, those are annoying.
I don't know what that is.
There are those memes that are normal memes, but then they like.
Do you want the Google definition?
Sure.
Deep fried memes are memes that have had their visual properties exaggerated and blown out for artistic effect.
It's definitely not.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. It's not artistic effect. It's just where they start to blow up the colors and everything starts to pixelate and it just looks like your eyes are bleeding as you look at something, and it's just terrible. It's dumb, and they're dumb memes. They're always dumb memes. So I don't know. I mean, there's little things like that that get on my nerves, but they're all right, I guess. Kids these days.
They do hurt my eyes to look at right now.
Are you looking at them? They're terrible.
I'm looking at some, and they're pretty bad.
These dang kids think they're hilarious, but they're definitely not. They need to jump over to prequel memes on Reddit. That's some quality stuff right there.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I would complain so much about kids these days. I would complain about parents these days. I feel, and which I am in that bucket too. I feel that our generation of parents are kind of weak, kind of soft. I feel like kids these days are like they get away with everything. No discipline. They're just kind of annoying. I don't know. Maybe they've always been this way, but I feel like most of my friends and most kids I grew up with, you did something, you'd get in trouble, and you'd pay a price for it. And I don't really see a lot of parents that actually discipline their kids these days, which means now I'm really just complaining at the world. But
yeah, you really sound like an old man.
But yeah, I just feel like kids. I see this. I just kind of observe it from friends, from family. Their kids kind of walk all over them. I'm like, man, no way. I wouldn't stand for that. In fact, I remember one time, my sister-in-law, when she actually followed through and shipped her kid off to bed early, when all the other cousins were out having fun because she acted out when it was a fairly minor offense. And I remember at the time be whoa, I haven't seen that in a while, where a parent actually did what they said they were going to do to their kids and actually followed through with an actual consequence. And then at that time I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to be like. I'm going to punish my kids when I say I'm going to punish them.
Well, yeah, sure. But let's back up for a second. When we talk about kids these days, I think of middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Oh, no, I'm thinking kids. Oh. That's like a teenager to me.
It's a bunch of
adolescent,
a bunch of punks, a bunch of kids. That's what they are.
But they're all similar.
And actually, the teenagers don't bother me as much. I mean, obviously, social media is annoying, and they're all kind of in that world and whatever. Teenagers are always. I feel like teenagers have always been annoying. I was a terrible, annoying teenager. I'm sure we all were. I don't feel like much has changed there, except for now they have social media, and now they can bully each other online.
That's true. Yeah, I think kids these days are under disciplined and under challenged, I guess. I remember there was no question in my mind, when I was growing up, if I got sent to jail, my mom would not have picked me up. She would have left me there. 100%. That was clear to me. I would be in jail.
Right. Amen. Preach.
Yep.
Would you do that to your kids too?
I would. Oh yeah, I would leave them in at least for a day. I would leave them in. If they did something to get sent to jail for a day, I'd leave them in for a day. Totally.
I remember my brother and we prank called 911 a few times, and we were I don't remember how old I was. I want to say like I was like 4. So my brother was probably like 6. And we were prank calling them with our neighbor. Anyway, so my mom came home and they called our house, and because they were like, and my mom picked up, and I don't know if it was the 911 operator or if it was the police, or they're like, hey, we keep getting 911 calls from you guys. Are you okay? So anyways, my mom was not happy. So she asked them to send the police out to our house to have a chat. I still remember hiding underneath my bed, like fully expecting to go to jail. And my brother was hiding in the closet. But yeah, I still remember going out there and talking with the police officer and just getting scared to death. There's some quality parenting. Thanks, Mom, for that.
Well, kids could call 911, but there's no home phones anymore. So I mean, you can't sneak off with the home phone, and I mean, people usually have their cell phones with them. So,
right.
The good old days, huh? Where you could call 911 from your house,
and they could call you back.
Yeah.
So that being said, is there anything that you envy about kids these days?
No, just the fact of like being a kid. I think we all miss that. But I actually would much rather have been a kid in my generation and like my era versus kids today.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we had a lot of fun as kids growing up. We just spent so much time outside, like playing sports, and just like we just spent all day, every day outside. I don't know. Maybe kids do that today. I feel like it's, I don't know. I think there's more, again, now I'm really becoming an obnoxious old guy, but I'm like, they just like sit on a computer or like sit in front of a TV, blah, 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 blah. And they probably don't. But
I think there's something to be said for that, because like, I feel like our generation we're millennials. I mean, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, like we were right in between like having absolutely no real fun technology before us, and right before like technology really took off and became something like that you could lose yourself in like all day, every day. Like I mean, I think cell phones for kids and stuff, I mean, I think that's, I don't know, it's tricky stuff to manage as a parent, I'm sure, and because it's all consuming for your child. And so I don't know, for us in our age group, it was fantastic. If I were to compare to today, it was fantastic not having phones, everyone having a phone all the time and stuff. Like, I mean, it's just so much more freeing comparing to what kids are going through today. So I don't know, other than just being young again, I guess. I don't think there's much that I'd envy about kids these days.
And I want to make it clear, I don't know if I would say like I would be more disciplined, like with some of the stuff Jordan was just talking about. If I were a kid growing up today, I'm sure I wouldn't be. I'm just glad I didn't have to deal with that choice or have that option.
Because I feel like we got a good balance between, playing outside, making up your own games, balance with, I mean, we still had fun video games and stuff that we'd all play.
Right.
But it wasn't to the all-consuming extent of, online play. I mean, playing online, I mean, I guess you could do that with StarCraft, but and some games, but
that wasn't. It felt like different. That didn't really happen until we were.
It was in high school for sure.
Teenagers, kind of, like it just didn't.
So
it hadn't really come together yet.
Yeah. So when you had a video game, like you'd play it till you beat it, and then that was about it. Then you'd go do something else. It wasn't something you could play for hours and hours over and over and over.
Unless you were playing with people like GoldenEye. You'd get together and have like a GoldenEye party and play slappers only, and
Slappers only. You got a point there. You got a point.
But that was a cool thing, is like you would actually be in a room with people, and that was always fun, whereas now you don't have to be in the same, you rarely are playing video games with people in the same room as you.
Yeah. I don't think kids are as poorly balanced as we might assume they are these days, but I agree. Definitely think they're way more into social media and screen time than we were. So somewhere in between our assumption and us is where they probably fall. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I think there probably is too much screen time and that sort of thing going on. But the one thing I do envy about the generation or kids these days is that, there is that draw, and they are seeing a lot of negative effects from being on screens all the time. But there's so many resources too. I mean, you can learn to do anything in a YouTube video. You can take a Udemy class on something and become a pseudo semi-expert, or at least be able to discuss it intelligently. And that didn't exist when we were kids. Like, I just bought a used longboard because I haven't skateboarded in forever and I thought it would be fun. So I'm like longboarding, and I can like go to YouTube and look stuff up, like, oh, how do I do this? Or what's a cool, simple thing I can do? And when you were a kid, like, there was no way to do that. You would have to like see someone else do it on TV or just like on the street to see that was even a thing.
That's true. I mean, definitely more resources out there for whatever you want to learn about, which would have been kind of cool for various activities we had when we were growing up. It'd be nice to I don't know how to build skate ramps better, right? I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of videos or information out there about that today, rather than us, I don't know, piecing together some plywood.
We surprisingly didn't die on.
Yeah.
We should have been seriously injured.
Yeah. But that's also part of the fun of growing up, figuring things out yourself on your own. Yeah. So I mean, as much as I'm playing around saying that we had the greatest generation, I think each generation has its own things, each struggles or fun activities that, like, future generations or previous ones didn't have as well, right? So I mean, again, take video games. Our grandparents, or even our parents, hardly have any experience with video games, but they're really fun, but same with any other things they would do when they were kids. We probably never get into that stuff. So I don't know.
It is super weird to think about that, like, TV and video games were invented in our parents' lifetimes, and cell phones and the internet were invented in our lifetimes. Like, there was a time when we were kids that there was no internet, that there were no cell phones. Like, it's super crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's accelerated super fast. Anyway, so what are some of your favorite memories of growing up? This is where we get to be nostalgic and talk about our growing up experience, which we've alluded to a little bit in the introduction to the show. But let's share some things.
I would just say kind of what I was already alluding to is I just miss, like, over the summer, all the kids on our street would just come out of their houses and we'd all just play sports. I mean, we'd play random street hockey, basketball, football, capture the flag, hide and go seek. Like, every game you could possibly think of, we were actively playing it. And so I just miss all the fun that we used to, and then like going out and messing with wasp nests and finding random frogs and just all sorts of just those random exploration quests that you'd go on with your friends. It's probably what I miss the most.
Most defining moments specifically, I don't know about your guys' memory, but I have to really focus to remember, like, large spans of time. But there's always those things that come to you quickly. I think building little forts out in the wash, out in the desert, that was always fun. Something we did like every summer. It's like, just, all right, it's summer. We got to build onto this fort we've got going for years. Or, it's just, I don't know, just like Max said, all the random games you'd play, war that we would have also in the wash. I don't know. There's just a lot of fun things that we came up with as kids. And
yeah, we did a lot of just stuff. I mean, we played Monopoly, we played Risk, we'd play card games, in a garage.
Yeah, action figure stuff, like,
yeah, all the stuff. We all grew up in a neighbor, like we all grew up in Tucson, so it's freaking hot. So almost everyone had a swimming pool. We'd go swimming on a whim, all the time. Just jump in someone's pool for a little bit, play pool games. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that because we didn't have cell phones growing up. I remember getting my first cell phone. I think I was a junior in high school. And I remember getting it and thinking, like, I'm never going to use this. Like, if I want to talk to my friends, I'll just walk to his front door and knock on the door. Because I guess some context. So we all grew up in the same neighborhood. So there were like 6 houses all in a clump on this street. And then Jordan up a bit from that. And then Max and his brother, like a less than 5-minute walk from the top of that street, plus our other friend Spencer really close by. And so we'd all kind of congregate on this street. And I mean, like, if I wanted to go hang out with somebody, I'd ride my bike to their house and knock on their door, and we would hang out. And it was awesome. It was great. And I'm sure a lot of people don't have that and have had to, do the phone thing more often, whatnot. But for us, we were always outside because we didn't really have the need for any other kind of communication, really. So that was kind of nice, and being able to do that. And then since we all lived kind of close and, our parents knew we weren't going very far, we stayed up late at night and would play night games like hide and seek and whatnot, and just had a grand old time.
Yeah. And even when cell phones did come around, they weren't like they are today. I mean, you had like very limited minutes.
You definitely didn't text.
Text messages were unheard of to begin with. And, it was like 25 cents a pop for text messages. And so it was just, they were, whether or not we would even make use of them, they were just, useless because of how expensive and, they were. Tons of things. Putting a couch on a skateboard. That was another good fun one, huh?
Obviously a defining moment since it's the name of the show.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess what I kind of liked was, and what kind of helped us grow up was kind of the freedom that we enjoyed. We could just go do things. I had less freedom than most everyone else because my mom made me be home earlier than most everyone else. But we had the freedom to really do whatever we wanted. Our parents let us go roam our neighborhood and roam the desert, next to our neighborhood. And, a lot of people in today's world can't let their kids do that because it's a little more dangerous world than it was when we were growing up. There's a lot more out there, especially with the technology, that can draw kids into dangerous or compromising situations. So I think that's kind of a bummer thing for kids these days. They don't get the same freedoms necessarily, and if they do, they're at a little bit more risk.
For sure.
All right, so no one wants to share any specific stories. Come on, we have like 1 million stories from growing up on the street.
Well, another one that came to mind. Kids will be kids.
Kids will be kids.
Another time, going back to the wash. I think Colby and I will always remember this. We were coming back, so the wash was like right. And for those that don't know, a wash is just a big area of desert where, when it floods, because in the summers in Arizona and Tucson, it'll monsoon and be these heavy rainstorms, and so water will flood through there. And anyway, so it was behind some of our houses. We could just hop the fence and get into the wash and just go. It's like a forest. You just go and explore. And so this one time we were walking back to our houses, and I don't know why we stopped, but we stopped and sat down. And then we were like waiting to jump over the fence for some reason. And Colby
we were throwing rocks at Mindy because she was in her backyard, and we were messing with her by throwing rocks and then hiding.
Yeah, she didn't know we were there. And then we looked down, and there's this little baby rattlesnake right at our feet.
Like what? Like maybe 3 feet away?
Not even. It was like so close to us. And I, like a very good friend, sat there and said, Colby, now please, let's be careful here. Let's be careful.
We are all Boy Scouts.
Colby jumps over the fence as fast as he can.
No, sir. You are remembering it wrong.
No, my mind's a solid trap.
When you're a Boy Scout in Arizona, you learn about rattlesnakes. And so we're sitting there. The rattlesnake is like 2 feet away. And I'm like, dude, hold still. Hold really, really still. Because it's like coiled and everything. And Jordan holds still for maybe half a second and then just scrambles over the wall and leaves me there. So then I sat there really still for a second and nothing happened. So then I scrambled over the wall really fast too.
Fight or flight. And I mean, you're not going to fight a rattlesnake, so.
Yeah, I guess.
Got to get out there.
We had another rattlesnake story. I remember there was that slab of cement out in the wash that some kids had like dug underneath. So there was like a cave under there and put some like rebar steps going down the hole. So it was like a ladder. And we were like climbing down to check it out. And Jordan was like a foot from the bottom. And our friend Brett, who was at the top, was like, what are you doing, dude? There's like snakes down there. And we looked down and like we hadn't seen them before. There were like 3 rattlesnakes right at the bottom of the steps waiting for us.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Pretty nutso stuff. I also remember, speaking of car stories, I remember driving home from somewhere and Max and Spencer were driving together and I was driving in front of them by myself and Spencer was a jerk and like passed me in the other lane. And so then when we got onto the next road, I passed him on the shoulder, but he didn't want to let me pass him. So he sped up and I sped up and it really escalated quickly. And we ended up going pretty fast on this road and a cop pulls out behind us when we got to the place where we would split off in different directions. So we both turned and the cop followed Spencer and Max, which I thought I was so grateful. I was like, I got away. I'm so happy. But then the cop showed up at my front door because apparently they ratted me out.
That is true. That is true. That cop was very aggressive towards us.
He was. I handed my parents the keys right then and there and lost the car for a while.
Well, I mean, I think there's plenty of driving stories we can tell, but what's interesting is like this next generation of kids very likely won't be driving. Like I look at my kids and I'm thinking like, you're probably not going to really be driving cars. Like it's probably going to be
self-driving cars and Ubers and
and hoverboards.
Hoverboard. Yeah. They're a big thing. So, it's kind of sad in a way, that like, there will come a time when I'm sure the government will rule you're not safe enough to drive your car on your own. Like you can't. It's illegal. It's stupid. Just.
I'm sure that'll be a long ways off, though. Like that will be decades.
Well, I mean,
it's gonna.
My kids are young.
Got a bunch of people that have their own cars that would just rather drive it. There's going to be people that don't like the idea of self-driving cars.
But think about how fast cell phones and the internet took off. I don't know. Self-driving cars could take off pretty quick in our lifetime.
I'm not saying that self-driving cars won't take off. I absolutely think they will. I'm just saying the mandate that people can't drive their cars anymore, that they have to be in a self-driving car. I think that's a long ways down the road.
Yeah, it could be.
We'll see.
You never know.
See.
You never know.
Let's revisit this in 15 years.
In 15 years.
And if I'm right, and no one's driving their own cars,
then Jordan will wear a Speedo and on the beach.
That's right. Playing volleyball.
Yep.
It'll be good.
Anyway, all right. So we had some good memories growing up doing dumb things.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think we could sit here and reminisce for hours. I think that's just the joy of being a kid. Like any moments that you have are just self-defining moments, for your life, and it's important for kids to cherish them and soak them in, because it's just I don't know, you don't get them back, and that's what a lot of your memories are made up of is your childhood. So yeah. It's fun stuff.
It's true. And I mean, it's interesting to think about like our parents And our grandparents, like, that was all they did, right? They could just wander off wherever they wanted, really, at any point in time. And their freedoms were so much more than ours, even when we were growing up. So it's interesting, the difference in generations. So as a close-up question here, well, close-up couple of questions, thinking about your parents and grandparents and the way they grew up and the way we grew up. We've already compared kids these days to us, but what about the previous generations? What think they had it better or worse than we do?
I would say there's probably the similarities between our experiences growing up are more comparable to previous generations, quite a ways back, versus the current generation. I feel like a lot has changed for that growing up experience in the last 10, 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I think actually there's a lot of similarities. I mean, obviously there's differences, but I don't know. I'm sure they all did similar stuff where they would just get together with their friends on the street and go out and play games and explore and do all that fun stuff. And not that kids don't do that today. I just think there's less of it. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I do think that each generation is, since probably our grandparents, great grandparents, has gotten a little softer here and there. I think, well, maybe not. I would say our generation is probably where the softening of the difficulties that we have had to go through in life, kind of started, like where we didn't have serious trials that us as a whole generation or whole countries were having to go through. I don't know. I think with our grandparents, I think there's, and great grandparents, there's a lot of things that they went through that I wouldn't care to go through, but I'm sure would make us better people.
Be specific though, like what?
Well, I mean, I think World War II was major. I think the whole country was jumping into this major worldwide war. Prior to that, Great Depression, and just so many trials that I feel like in our modern lives that we haven't had to deal with. Like, I mean, I don't enjoy the wars that our generation have experienced in the Middle East, and that's been trying. But when you start to look at like the numbers, like the casualties just don't even compare to what the countries, and not even just the U.S., but all countries were going through back in World War II. That era, like it was just all of these countries were just throwing everything they had into the fight. I think there's plenty of other just difficulties with not having the technology we have today that they experienced, that they would have to work and put sweat and grit into their daily lives that we have as pretty easy accommodations now. So would I like to experience some of those hardships? Not necessarily, but like I said, I'm sure they would make you I don't know, harder, tougher person. But I think that with each generation since then, I think that rough and tumbleness of those difficulties that great grandparents and grandparents went through. I think our parents realized that it was really hard. They had it hard as well, and I think they wanted it better for their kids, and so that's where you get into like this snowflake generation, right? Where they wanted to pamper them and make their kids' lives better than what they had, because they had real hardships, and they didn't want their kids to experience it. And I think I to an extent feel the same way with my kids. I want the best for them. And so I try to provide them with things that I never had, right, growing up. And so I think each subsequent generation will try their best to provide what they didn't have for their own kids, and what they didn't have in their childhood. So I don't know. I think, but as we said, each generation has had their ups and downs, and I don't think any of them would change it the way they grew up.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's crazy thinking about, like, my grandmother grew up during the Great Depression, 4 of her 5 older brothers served in World War II. Like, super crazy stuff they had to deal with. Like, all of her brothers, she grew up on a farm. All of her brothers that would help her dad on the farm all left at the same time, had to leave to go fight in the war. Like, just crazy stuff that they had to deal with. And, like, they were so in survival mode. Like, your feelings and your emotions, they kind of had to take a back seat because we just got to do what we got to do to survive at this point. And I think that was kind of manifest a lot in that generation. And then, you know, the way my mom was raised, like, it was a little less that way, where they had more freedoms, they had a little less to worry about. But, you know, being then raised by my grandmother who dealt with all that stuff, she still expected a lot out of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gets less and less over time. I think we are in an interesting position to where we're raising kids in a time, you know, and this is how the world life, I feel like, always is the pendulum. You swing from one end to the other. You know, and in life, when you correct yourself, you realize you're doing something wrong. Like, you go too far to one side, so you start swinging the other way until you go too far that way, and then you have to swing back the other way, and it's a balancing act that way. And my feeling is, for me and my kids at least, that we're kind of at the point where, you know, those things that my grandma had to go through, I would never want my kids to go through. But the determination that she had to have and that she developed going through those hard times has done nothing but good things for her, right? And so I feel like we're at a time where we might be, as a society, or maybe this is just my thought and me, are swinging too far to the having too much and not having enough to overcome, to where maybe kids, or my kids, are getting a little bit soft and more spoiled. And we kind of maybe need to swing back the other way a little bit and find a balance in the middle. Kind of the way I think about it. I mean, it's hard because obviously I wouldn't change the way I grew up, but I think if I had to deal with some harder things, I might have been better off for it, because I didn't really deal with a lot that was hard when I was growing up.
And that's not to say that no one in our generation, you know,
right, and
difficult times.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's circumstances are different.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I hear you. I wouldn't want to thrust, you know, hardship onto my kids, but they do refine you. They do, you know, make you into, you know, the person you're going to be. And so, but that's for better or for worse, right? I mean, sometimes they just turn you into a cold person when you're always going through difficult times, you know, rather than making you better on the other side. So it is a difficult balance. And as a parent today, it's really hard to understand how to navigate those, you know, what is the best way to parent? You know, do we punish for every little single thing, or, you know, are we rewarding, or, you know, it's difficult to know what is best for your kids. And because, I mean, I don't know, there are certainly patterns and things, and like you're saying. So,
like I think about like I said, I didn't have to do a lot that was hard in my life, but like having a bad teacher in school, in middle school or high school, that was hard to deal with, or didn't teach the way that was good for me. And it's like, I don't want my kids to have to go through that. That was awful. But at the same time, I think like, well, do I though? Because I probably learned a lot more out of that difficulty. And, you know, that probably made me into a better person than just having a teacher that was super easy. I don't know. So I think about that a lot, that, you know, my initial instinct is I want to spare my kids that. And then I think a little harder, like, well, or do I want to let them go through some maybe controlled hardship and figure things out on their own a little bit? Anyway, food for thought. Food for thought on
Maxwell.
Growing up. Anyone have any last... Max, you have the youngest young family here. Any thoughts?
I mean, I just think like the biggest thing is that I think that's good for kids to experience is failure, and like recognizing like how to put it in its place and how to come to terms with it. I think that was something probably in our generation that started to go away, where parents like try to help their kids avoid failure. And then as I've gotten older, I've noticed that I'm too afraid of it, and sometimes struggle with like how to manage like, hey, I messed up, or I didn't do something correctly, and like how do I deal with that. And so I think that's like something I think about with like my kids, is just like, like I really want my kids to like fail, and I really want to like help them like manage that and have like the right perspective, so when they get older, it's not going to be such a surprise to them. It won't be a big blow to them. They'll know how to respond.
Why do we fall, Bruce?
Yeah. Learn to pick ourselves back up again.
Yeah. I just watched Dark Knight Rises the other day, so that was in my head. I think that's a really good point. The failure, that's how we learn, and if we protect kids from failing ever, then they're not going to learn how to do better. So, very good point. Any last thoughts on the topic?
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see like, what happens in the future, but it's just it's always like hard to like kind of put things in perspective and understand like, oh well, like this generation went through this, and like what did like like what will like the younger generation say about our generation. And, is it worse to go through some of those life events that you guys talked about as like a kid or as an adult? And because like I kind of look at like some of like the larger world events that we've lived through have happened more to us as like young adults and adults. And to be honest, like I kind of look around at kids that have been going through, COVID or something like that. And it's like, it doesn't seem like it really phases them as much. Whereas like, I don't know, like as a parent and as a dad, like I feel like a ton of responsibility to like provide for my family. And I just think, I don't know, I just think like some of those like things are almost more challenging as an adult than they are as kids.
Yeah, kids are resilient that way. Yeah. You could take 9/11. I mean, that happened when we were young. And as a kid, and that's not exactly a kid, we were teenagers, but I think we were like, wow, that's a pretty major thing that happened. But we probably didn't fully grasp the
right.
Full,
you just can't appreciate what that is,
the full implications of it. Yeah. So, but as an adult, I think those things really resonate with you because what kind of a ripple effect an action like that's going to have, and how that could affect you as a parent. And so yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, you're not as concerned with the uncertainty when you're a teenager. It's a thing that happened. Right. But as an adult, that creates a whole bunch of scenarios in your mind of what could happen next. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Well, let's leave it there. Let us know if you have any thoughts or opinions on what we've discussed. If you think our generation, being, I guess our generation, we're millennials, which generation you think is best, let's say, or the challenges or benefits of one over the other, email us at thecouchboard@gmail.com. Follow us, subscribe. You can listen to the podcast anywhere that you can find podcasts. Like us on Instagram, Facebook, all the places. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Peace.